The first time Isabella walked into Westbridge Academy, she felt a wave of suffocating fear wash over her. The marble floors gleamed under the bright chandeliers, and the walls were lined with portraits of alumni who had gone on to change the world. But as the daughter of a billionaire, Isabella didn't feel accomplished, she felt completely invisible. She carried the weight of her family name, yet every exam she took, every assignment she submitted, reminded her of one painful truth: she was failing. Constantly. No matter how hard she tried, numbers blurred into incomprehensible shapes, words swam on the page, and formulas danced in a way she couldn't follow. Teachers whispered behind closed doors about her potential and lack of effort, and her peers, mostly children of influential families, barely noticed her at all. For someone born into wealth and privilege, Isabella felt poorer than anyone she had ever known. Her mornings began with the sound of her father's voice echoing through the mansion, discussing stock portfolios, charity galas, and international deals she had no interest in. Her mother, elegant and poised, always seemed just out of reach, her warmth reserved for gala events and social appearances rather than her own child. Isabella's loneliness was profound, but what hurt the most was the feeling that she was disappointing everyone. She wasn't just failing academically, she felt like she was failing at life. Each day at school became a nightmare. Teachers assigned her work she couldn't understand, classmates laughed when she asked questions, and her self-esteem dwindled further. One day, during math class, she watched as her peers filled pages with formulas, solving problems effortlessly. She tried to focus, tried to memorize steps and mimic their solutions, but it was as if her brain refused to cooperate. By the end of class, she had barely written a single correct answer. The shame burned like fire, and Isabella buried her face in her hands, wishing she could disappear entirely. The only place Isabella found any comfort was in the quiet, dimly lit corners of the school library, where she would stare at books she couldn't understand, imagining what it might feel like to grasp the words. She would watch the janitor, Mr. Thompson, move silently down the halls, his cart squeaking as he worked. He was an older man with silver hair and gentle eyes that always seemed to notice everything, including her. Unlike the teachers, he never judged her, and unlike the other students, he never laughed at her. Sometimes, he would pause by the library shelves and give her a small nod, as if silently cheering her on. It was a tiny gesture, but for Isabella, it felt like a lifeline. One particularly discouraging afternoon, after receiving her latest test back with a failing grade scrawled in red ink, Isabella lingered in the library, trying to hold back tears. Mr. Thompson was there, quietly stacking books. He watched her struggle, and finally, he walked over, holding a small notebook. Without a word, he handed it to her. Curiosity sparked through Isabella as she opened it. Inside were notes, sketches, and clever little tricks for remembering difficult concepts, an almost magical system that transformed the way the mind could retain information. "This might help," he said softly, his eyes kind. "I've seen a lot of smart kids who just don't learn the way schools expect. Maybe this will work for you." It was a simple gesture, yet for Isabella, it was revolutionary. She began studying the notebook methodically, following Mr. Thompson's instructions. At first, progress was slow. Some days she would spend hours staring at a page, feeling like she was getting nowhere. But the janitor's approach was different. It didn't rely on rote memorization or rigid instructions. Instead, it turned learning into patterns, stories, and connections that made sense to her brain. Slowly, the fog began to lift. Numbers started to feel less like enemies, words stopped swimming across the page, and for the first time in her life, Isabella understood. Her transformation didn't happen overnight, but it was relentless. Isabella would stay late after school, waiting for Mr. Thompson to finish his rounds, and he would guide her through the toughest problems, always patient, never condescending. Gradually, her confidence grew. She began to answer questions in class, tentatively at first, then with certainty. Teachers who had written her off were astonished. Classmates who once ignored her began to take notice. But more importantly, Isabella began to believe in herself. Yet, the real change wasn't in her grades, it was in her spirit. Isabella discovered that intelligence wasn't just about memorizing facts or scoring perfect marks. It was about persistence, curiosity, and having someone believe in you when no one else would. Mr. Thompson never let her give up. He never reminded her of her failures. He only celebrated the small victories, the tiny steps forward, until those steps became strides. Her parents noticed the change too. Her father, who had always seen her as fragile and incapable, watched in amazement as she aced tests that once seemed impossible. Her mother, who had been distant, began to smile more often at her daughter, recognizing the fire that had been dormant for so long. But Isabella never forgot the quiet janitor whose belief in her had sparked this transformation. To her, he was more than a mentor, he was a hero who had given her the courage to rise above her insecurities. The turning point came during the school's annual science fair. Isabella had chosen to design a project that mirrored the methods Mr. Thompson had taught her, transforming complex problems into manageable, creative solutions. She worked tirelessly, sketching diagrams, writing reports, and testing experiments. The day of the fair arrived, and Isabella felt the familiar flutter of nervousness. She set up her project carefully, glancing around at the impressive displays of other students. When the judges arrived, Isabella explained her process. She described how she had struggled, how traditional methods hadn't worked for her, and how she had discovered a new way to learn, thanks to Mr. Thompson. The judges listened intently, clearly impressed by her insight and originality. By the end of the day, Isabella's project had won first place. She stood on the stage, accepting the award with tears streaming down her face. In that moment, she realized that her struggles had not been a curse, they had been the crucible that forged her resilience, creativity, and determination. The story of Isabella and Mr. Thompson spread throughout the school. Students who had once overlooked her now came to her for guidance. Teachers who had doubted her now sought her input. And Isabella herself had grown into a confident, intelligent young woman who understood the power of kindness, mentorship, and perseverance. She never forgot the janitor who had changed her life with nothing more than belief, patience, and a small notebook filled with wisdom. And though she now excelled academically, Isabella never let success define her. She spent time helping other students who struggled, sharing the techniques she had learned, always remembering the lesson that had transformed her life, that sometimes the right guidance at the right moment can change everything. If this story touched your heart, take a moment now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, especially if you believe in the power of kindness, mentorship, and second chances. Your support helps us share more stories like this with the world. As Isabella graduated from Westbridge Academy, valedictorian of her class, she looked out at the crowd and thought about Mr. Thompson. She imagined him standing quietly in the back, smiling proudly. She had become the person she once thought she never could be, not because she was born into wealth, but because someone believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. Before you leave, please comment below and share what part of this story inspired you the most. It means the world to us to hear your thoughts and emotions. Isabella's story is a reminder that brilliance can be found in unexpected places, and that sometimes the quietest heroes have the greatest impact. A janitor's simple act of patience and wisdom had turned despair into hope, failure into triumph, and a struggling girl into a young woman who could face the world with confidence and courage. As viewers, we are often caught up in achievements, status, and recognition, but stories like Isabella's teach us that true success is measured in the lives we touch, the encouragement we offer, and the belief we plant in others. Just like Isabella, there are countless young people out there, struggling silently, waiting for someone to notice them, to offer a hand, and to say, "I believe in you." If this story moved you, please engage with this video, like, share, and comment. Your small act of interaction can spread hope, inspiration, and encouragement to someone who may need it today. In the end, Isabella learned what no classroom could teach her: that intelligence isn't just a gift, it's a combination of guidance, perseverance, and the courage to keep trying. And thanks to a janitor who refused to give up on her, she had discovered her own brilliance, lighting a path not just for herself but for everyone who would follow.